it's hard to stop, especially when parents have let them have those cell phones for so many hours a day for them to be sexualized. That's a crazy thing. Right? And with drugs, let me tell you a little bit about what I know in drugs and kids. I was at the middle school for 2 years. So I had 6th, 7th, 8th graders. Then I went to the high school that middle school feeds. That's 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th graders. Mountain View High School had 2,300 students. Now, what I tell the kids, and I'm pretty close to right, is I have more vapes than any other human in Idaho. Because I confiscated about 100 vapes every semester, starting 5 years ago. 100 vapes. Well, at Mountain View High School where I was at, when you get caught with a vape, when you get caught with a cigarette, you get $74 citation and a week of in-school suspension. So in that week of in-school suspension, I had exclusive access to the kids, and I would talk to them, hey, how much are you addicted? Are you going to stop? What would it take for you to stop? But the sadder thing is that I knew them as 6th and 7th graders. And in 6th and 7th graders, these boys, these girls, had so many dreams and so many things they were going to do, and so many things they did. They water skied, they mountain bike, they dirt bike, they go hunting, they go fishing, they do all these things. And once they started vaping, just vaping, once they started vaping, they quit all those things. And so now I see them as 10th and 11th graders, and I talk to them, I know their name. Hey, Jesse, hey, Bob, what do you do now? Well, I vape with my friends. Like, what happened to all these other things that you used to do? And they all tell me some form of, I grew up. And I tell them, no, you gave up. You gave up all these things, right? And addiction, a simple term that I give the kids for addiction is giving up everything for one thing. And once kids start vaping, they start smoking marijuana, they start doing pills at school, they give up everything for one thing. You can be addicted to other things. You can be addicted to pornography. You can be addicted to gambling. You can be addicted to Snapchat. You can be addicted to Fortnite. Right? I can't tell you how many 911 calls I've gone to where a parent has disrupted a Fortnite game and kid has gone cray-cray. Right? Addiction, giving up everything for one thing. And I get the occasional kid that says, hey, you know what? I know somebody who smokes marijuana and they are very successful. And my answer to that is, I know somebody who won the lottery and they're very successful. I wouldn't bet that for any reason. Right? But I see the results. I'm the one who parents call when they don't know where their kid is at night. It's like, hey, my senior didn't come home last night. He's been hanging out with these kids smoking dope. I don't know where he is. Then pretty soon if they get into harder drugs, then I got parents begging me to arrest their kids so that they can get a good night's sleep because they know their kid is safe for the night. That's what drugs do to kids. And that's not made up. It's not imaginary. It's not just a one-time thing. Every officer you talk to will have known somebody who's asked them, please go arrest somebody so that I can sleep tonight because I know where they are. Pills in the school. A lot of people don't know about pills in the school. We have a lot of Norco, a lot of Adderalls, a lot of Vicodins. And it's so easy for them to get. You get a football injury, you go to the doctor, they prescribe you 30 Norcos, you only need 10 of them. You can sell the rest of the Norcos for $10 a pill because parents aren't paying attention. At $10 a pill, you can get a new Xbox. Right? And what do they do with those pills at school? They bring them to school, they crush them, and they put them in a Gatorade. That way they can sip them during class in front of the teacher. What they do with the pills, they bring them and they crush them and they snort them in a tubie. The reason they snort them in a tubie is because a lot of them are time release, and if you snort them in a tubie, you can get them all at once. Adderall? I always ask the kids, why are you taking Adderall? Well, it helps me focus. I'm like, all right, you got straight F's. What are we focusing on? Right? Is it that hard? But these are things that parents need to know. They need to understand what's going on and know what's happening right under your nose. Take care of your pills. Educate yourselves. Educate your kids. Spend time with your kids. Always when people ask me, how can I fix this? Family time, family time, family time. Spend time with your family. Because if you let social media spend time with your family, that's who's going to raise them. I'll be here for questions. I have a Facebook page. I have a lot of stuff on there. Please ask me any questions. Reach out to me anytime. And I'm going to come back to do some parent nights at some point. I already scared your kids in the last few days. will scare the parents later.
All right, and our final presenters of the night are Dr. Dale McQueenie and Lisa Whipple of CHD. Dale is a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner from Maine, where she earned a bachelor's degree, Bachelor's of Science in Mental Health and Human Services from University of Maine at Augusta, followed by a Master's of Science in Nursing from the University of Southern Maine. She specializes in treating opioid use disorders and other substance use disorders. She's been providing psychiatric services for the Center for Human Development through telehealth for the last 2 years. And joining her on stage is Lisa Whipple. She graduated from Eastern Oregon University in 2021 with a bachelor's degree in integrative studies and a concentration in substance abuse. She's a certified recovery mentor, qualified mental health associate, and will soon be completing her certification as an alcohol and drug counselor. She currently works for CHD as a substance use disorder case manager.
Thank you. Not a doctor like Dr. McElroy, but psychiatric nurse practitioner. Thank you to the Union County Safe Communities Coalition for bringing me here to La Grande to speak to you tonight. It has been my honor to serve the people of Union County in my work with the Center for Human Development for the past 2 years, and I'm thrilled to be here in La Grande to meet with you and to see some of my clients in person. We're all concerned about our youth using substances, and you may wonder, what do I look for? Here are some behavioral and physical signs that may be an indication that your child may be using substances. First, here are some behavioral signs. Avoiding eye contact, ignoring or breaking curfew, acting irresponsibly, frequently asking for money, stealing, locking bedroom doors, making secretive calls, isolating from others or damaging relationships with friends or family, making excuses or outright lying, withdrawing from classroom participation or slipping in grades, resisting discipline or feedback, missing school or work, losing interest in hobbies or activities, or abandoning longtime friends. And some physical indicators of possible substance use or abuse are poor hygiene or change in appearance, glazed or bloodshot eyes, frequent runny nose or nosebleeds, paranoia, irritability, anxiety, fidgeting, changes in mood or attitude, difficulty staying on task or staying focused, small track marks on arms or legs. They may wear long sleeves even in warm weather to cover these up. Pupils larger or smaller than usual, cold, sweaty palms or shaking hands, sores on mouth, headaches, puffy, swollen face, extremely tired or extremely hyperactive, or rapid weight gain or loss. As a parent or guardian or any concerned adult, you can never intervene too early. If you catch the behavior in an early stage when these warning signs first appear, you are much more likely to prevent a future problem or emergency situation. Now let's look at opioids specifically. Opioids are a class of drugs that include heroin, synthetic opioids such as fentanyl, which we've already talked about quite a bit, and pain relievers available by prescription, such as oxycodone, which is OxyContin, hydrocodone, Vicodin, codeine, morphine, and many others. They all act on 3 main types of opioid receptors on nerve cells or neurons, mu, kappa, and delta. The mu opioid receptors are responsible for opioids' pleasurable effects. Prescription opioids are used to treat moderate to severe pain and are often prescribed following surgery or injury, or for health conditions such as cancer. Even though there is a lack of evidence supporting their use in this way, they are often used for chronic non-cancer pain, such as back pain or osteoarthritis, which is concerning because of the serious risks involved. Anyone who takes prescription opioids can become addicted to them, and most people who abuse prescription opioids get them for free from a friend or relative. People are at risk of overdose if they take too many opioids. They can stop a person's breathing, leading to death. Heroin is a highly addictive opioid drug. In 2019, over 28% of all opioid deaths involved heroin. Heroin is snorted or smoked, but typically injected. IV users are at risk of serious long-term viral infections such as HIV, hepatitis C, or hepatitis B, as well as bacterial infections of the skin, bloodstream, or heart. Nearly all people using heroin are also using other drugs, which increases the risk of overdose. A heroin overdose can cause slow and shallow breathing, coma, and death. Signs of someone having any type of opioid overdose include if their body is extremely pale and or feels clammy to the touch, their body goes limp, their fingernails or lips have a purple or blue color, as Dr. McElmoy mentioned. Their pupils are very small or pinpoint. They start vomiting or making gurgling noises. They can't be awakened or are unable to speak, or their breathing or heartbeat slows or stops. If you suspect someone is experiencing an opioid overdose, call 911. If the person has stopped breathing or if their breathing is very weak, begin CPR. If available, treat the person with naloxone or Narcan to reverse the opioid overdose. Just like with prescription opioids, people who use heroin can develop an opioid use disorder. There are 4 groups of criteria for the diagnosis of an opioid use disorder. These are impaired control, social problems or impairment, risky use, and physical dependence. Impaired control criteria include using larger amounts of opioids or over a longer period of time than intended, efforts to cut down or control use, spending a lot of time trying to obtain, use, or recover from use of opioids, and cravings. Social problems or impairment is seen when the use of opioids gets in the way of major role obligations, such as work, school, and home life. The person has social or interpersonal problems that are caused or made worse by their use of opioids, yet they continue to use them. And they give up or reduce important activities in their life because of their use. Risky use is when a person uses in situations in which it is physically hazardous to do so, and they continue to use even when they know they have a physical or psychological problem that is caused or made worse by their use. Physical dependence is characterized by tolerance and withdrawal. Tolerance is when a person needs more of a substance to achieve the desired effect or has less effect from the same amount. Pharmaceutical fentanyl is a synthetic opioid approved for treating severe pain, typically advanced cancer pain. It is 50 to 100 times more potent than morphine. It is prescribed in the form of transdermal patches or lozenges that can be diverted for misuse and abuse. However, as Captain Bell was talking about, the most recent cases of fentanyl-related harm, overdose, and death in the U.S. and in our own county are linked to counterfeit fentanyl. We have seen an influx of it recently. It is often pressed into tablets to look like prescription pain or anti-anxiety medication, such as oxycodone, they're known as M30s, Percocet or Xanax as examples, or mixed with other drugs such as cocaine or methamphetamine. Young people in particular frequently purchase these counterfeit pills online, not knowing that they're getting fentanyl with devastating consequences. Overdose deaths involving synthetic opioids such as fentanyl were nearly 12 times higher in 2019 than in 2013. More than 36,000 people died from overdoses involving synthetic opioids in 2019, and that number has only grown. Overdose deaths in general accelerated during the COVID-19 pandemic, and between November 2020 and November 2021, there were nearly 107,000 overdose deaths. So how do we treat opioid use disorder? One effective way is with buprenorphine, one of the medications in Suboxone. Buprenorphine was approved by the FDA in 2002 for the treatment of opioid use disorder both during and after detox. It is also sometimes used in the hospital for pain relief after surgery and for chronic pain. Like other opioids, buprenorphine binds to mu opioid receptors in the brain. However, buprenorphine is only a partial agonist or partial stimulator and partial blocker for these opioid receptors and cannot stimulate the brain as strongly as other opioids that are full agonists or full stimulators. This allows buprenorphine to have a ceiling effect. When taken by mouth, it is rare for buprenorphine to stimulate opioid receptors strongly enough to cause a fatal overdose. Buprenorphine is also a long-acting medication, providing stable, low-level activation of opioid receptors in the brain, preventing withdrawal symptoms and cravings. This is the goal of buprenorphine, initially to relieve withdrawal symptoms and then to alleviate cravings and prevent relapse. Importantly, since buprenorphine is a partial agonist that binds tightly to the opioid receptors, it also blocks the effects of other opioids so that clients who use will not feel a drug effect or high from using those other opioids. Suboxone is a formulation of buprenorphine that includes naloxone, and it is safer to use than buprenorphine alone. Suboxone has less risk of abuse than through injection because of its extra ingredient, naloxone, which is an opioid antagonist or blocker. Naloxone is not active when Suboxone is taken under the tongue as directed. However, if Suboxone is abused and injected to attempt a bigger high, naloxone becomes active and blocks the body's opioid receptors, causing withdrawal symptoms. This helps decrease the risk that Suboxone might be abused. Despite these safety features, Suboxone can still be dangerous when it is mixed with other drugs, street drugs, or certain prescription medications such as benzodiazepines like Valium or Xanax, or excess alcohol. Clients often ask me, how long do I need to take this? I liken it to treatment for any other chronic disease, for example, insulin for diabetes, because of the lasting changes in the brain that are caused by opioid use disorder. Many studies have followed clients before and after being tapered off of Suboxone maintenance, and all have shown a high rate of relapse after taper. For example, a 2011 study found that clients who have been stabilized with Suboxone often relapse after being tapered off, even when therapies like counseling are continued. This study found that more than 90% of clients relapsed after an initial 3-week taper. After restabilization with Suboxone for 12 weeks, still over 90% of these clients relapsed again when tapered off, even when they received additional counseling. The optimum duration of Suboxone or buprenorphine treatment has not yet been determined, but I always recommend that it be continued indefinitely in order to support recovery. It really does save lives. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to your questions. Now I'll turn it over to Lisa.
Thanks, Jill. I am Lisa, and I am a case manager for the Center for Human Development. I work directly with those who struggle with substance abuse, all kinds. I work with people who suffer from opioid addiction, stimulant addiction, alcohol, cannabis, even herbal supplements that are bought over the counter at our local gas stations. There are a few things that I've learned through my own lived experience and my professional perspective. Addiction does not discriminate. It does not matter your age, your race, your identity, your socioeconomic standing, profession, or level of education. Addiction affects us all, and whether that is directly or indirectly, it is a battle that must be waged on all fronts. We are all aware of the opiate epidemic. It plasters our billboards, flashes across our news screens. Hollywood has made a killing of glamorizing the industry. Many of us have lost loved ones. Many times this is a concept that is an abstract idea and becomes a surprise when we are caught off guard that it can hit so close to home. Addiction is not a one-size-fits-all opportunity. Though there are factors that can increase someone's chances of becoming addicted, such things as genetic influence, childhood trauma, or social interaction, none of these guarantee that one will or won't suffer from substance use. One of the most important and effective elements that we can use in the prevention of addiction is education, especially to our youth. Unfortunately, children are becoming engaged in the drug culture at an alarmingly younger age than we have ever seen before. One of the first lines of education starts with a parent, a guardian, or a trusted adult. Understanding that we, as a society, must come together to be able to have those hard conversations with our youth about the dangers and consequences of any and all drugs. We must educate ourselves in the present because there are so many whose future depends what we do from this day out. From vaping to fentanyl, the more education and information that is obtained is one of the greatest weapons that we have to yield. Opening up the lines of communication when children can feel comfortable asking questions, seeking answers, asking for help, finding resources, and confiding give them the opportunity to be open and honest about the struggles that are inflicted upon them on a daily basis. It is in these moments of opportunity that we can acknowledge them and help them to create a path for them to succeed. These conversations can no longer be taboo. They can no longer be pushed under the rug, and the elephant has got to leave the room. The well-being of our youth absolutely depends on it. Our entire conversation about addiction and how to prevent it must change. The stigma around the topic leaves those to suffer in silence. As I sit here today, I see an entire network of individuals who just want to help. Individuals who are giving you the information that you need to have those hard conversations. From law enforcement, our medical fields, and treatment, we all have the same goal in mind. We want to help prevent our youth and their families from suffering through the chaos that is active addiction, and it all starts with all of us. I am asking my community today to please come together and strive with us as we build a safer, stronger, and more successful future, because they are the future of our community. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our panelists tonight. We're going to transition into the Q&A. I feel like this has gotten shorter. Seriously, sorry. Oh, sorry. so sorry. Maybe it did. We're going to transition into Q&A now. So for those of you that have had the opportunity to write some questions down on note cards, please hold those up. We've got some runners looking out there. For those of you that are with us through the EO live stream, please make sure that you're getting those questions typed in. We've got someone monitoring those, and they will be brought up to me on the stage as well. We can ask Deputy Gomez for another joke. All right, panel. If you cannot get to a drop-off box for expired medication, how else can you safely dispose of these medications?
I got you on that one. Good question. I don't know where it came from, but thanks for the question. The police department has a drop box that's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. No questions asked. Walk into the lobby, and it looks like a mailbox. You drop your stuff in there, and it's safely disposed of. Those same types of drop boxes, which are available obviously during business hours, Safeway, Rite Aid Pharmacy, Grand Ronde Hospital, Red Cross Drug. Those are all in LeGrand. I don't know if we have anyone here in the audience tonight, maybe online, that is in one of the outlying communities within the county, but we have some neat opportunities. I hope I don't mess this up. In Elgin and Imbler, I think at both city halls, we have, and also at Cook Memorial Library, There are envelopes, they look like shipping envelopes that you can just go in there, pick them up, and then when you're ready, you put your prescription drugs that you want to dispose of in those, seal it, mail it off. No cost, it's prepaid and all of that. We have, and we're going to post this, Safe Communities Coalition, just earlier this week we put together a one page that has all of the options within Union County of where you can safely dispose. We got all the drop boxes and all of the envelope pickup locations. So we'll have a pile of those at the Take Back event locations on Saturday, but I'll make sure that it's posted on the police department webpage, and I think it may already be. If it's not, I guess we could probably put it on the Safe Communities Coalition webpage as well, but we want to get that distributed. So, and if you ever have any questions, you don't remember what I just said, don't hesitate, give us a call. We'll help you out.
Right? If someone is misusing opioids and does not want to seek treatment, how can we help them?
I guess I'll take that one. The thing about addiction is that it's a long process and often starts with little steps. Even if somebody isn't on page to getting the full path of recovery, us at CHD, our recovery mentors, and the people that I work with are always open to have conversations with individuals. There's a statistic that floats around that talks about if a social worker goes to talk to an addict in the first couple days of detox, trying to get them to seek further treatment, they have about a 20% success rate. If someone with the lived experience goes in and talks to them and communicates them one-on-one with that, then they have actually about an 80% success rate to at least get them to initially engage. That initial engagement can happen many times before that final leap is actually made into abstinence. But that's what we do on the lived experience and is help people walk through that process, whether they're ready or not.
What do you feel is the biggest factor or factors contributing to youth abusing drugs? And as community members and parents, what can we be doing to help? Biggest factors.
Let's take a shot at it. Okay, so some of the biggest factors are peer pressure, education, right? Who's educating kids? If social media is educating kids, they're not going to get the greatest of drug messages. Absence of family activities is a big factor, right? And, you know, I got a lot of people, whether you're religious or not, that don't go to church anymore. And I say, hey, what have you replaced that with? Right? And if you have something to replace it with, great. But church, boating, outing, horseback riding, community activities as a family is probably one of the things that stops it the most. A lot of kids have anxiety, depression because they spend so much time on their cell phones. Once you get anxiety, depression, it's easy to be talked into drugs. And it's easy for them to be glamorized on social media that they're looking at every day. Right? And it's been similar for all time. But lately, when you have, every kid has a cell phone, every kid has other adults with bad intentions talking to your kids, whether you like it or not. So, family time, family activity is always going to be the answer here.
I don't know if I'm breaking a rule, but I'd like to add to that. So, like what was just shared, the family time and structure, the component of the question about what can we do, when your kids have friends that maybe they don't have quite as structured of home life. Maybe, you know, they have family members that are not the best of role models. I would offer to you that it could be helpful to, when your kids ask if their friend can come over or come along or whatever, encourage that. Because, you know, our kids are looking for role models all the time. And if your home or your family structure, you know, if you guys do events, if you go camping, if you go whatever, you know, if you take the less fortunate kid along with you, that could make a significant difference in their life. So that's something that I think could be beneficial.
All right, next question. Because of the rising amount of overdoses, what kind of training is being implemented at the police department for these interactions with community members? Can you give us the process that you go through in responding to these calls?
I guess I'll take that one. That's a big question. I'll try to be brief, but you know, the training that goes on in law enforcement, it never stops. And the topics are so varied, and the complexity of our work in law enforcement is ever increasing. And quite frankly, it's very challenging because the calls for service, the complexity and the dwell time on the calls for service that our officers are dealing with, it's a real challenge to balance, you know what, we have a job to do and people need our assistance, and then how do we fit the training in with it? There is a disproportionate number of times that the calls for service that our officers are going to have a connection with some type of substance abuse, alcohol, drugs, whatever it might be. The number of calls for service that our officers are dealing with where mental health is a component, it has exploded. The percentage increase that I shared with you earlier about the overdoses, it's even larger. Honestly, it's in the thousands of percents of the number of increases since like 2007. I think we've got a report we did within the last year at the police department on that. So we have done, and continually, very few of our training topics are something that we visit once and never visit again. So they're reoccurring things, some of them annually, some of them more frequently than that. We work on de-escalation, which means how do we communicate with people in order to reach a solution. Because here's the thing, some people think, you get this from the movies, some people think we get a 911 call and a police officer shows up and they fix the problem by arresting them and taking them to jail. The fact is that actually is seldom what happens. A lot of times when we have something going on within our community, a social issue, a family issue, and there's no other specific phone number that you call that deals with just that, then the police are who are called. And just being very, very frank with you, oftentimes we don't have ready solutions that we just pop out of our duty belts and, oh, we fixed that, we're on to the next one. No, it's communication. We're in the people business. So we provide lots of training. Our officers are getting it at the Basic Police Academy, a whole lot better training than I received when I went to the Basic Police Academy, and then we're reinforcing that throughout their career, quite frankly. So de-escalation, our officers are actually carrying Narcan now, so we're doing lots of first aid and medical training. I don't know if I missed something, if there was something specific within that question. That's a big topic, but the training is complex. We're asking more of our police officers than we've ever asked before. So, but they're doing the best they can. I can assure you of that.
I can say that in the ER, we hear a lot of the calls that go out. The police officers, CHD crisis, are out on calls that a lot of times aren't overdoses or anything like that. But they deal with them in the community in such a great way. You know, I may never see them in the ER. I know that when patients are brought for mental health and other things to the emergency department, I see police officers de-escalate the situation really well, where I don't have to give medication to sedate the patient to get them to calm down or anything like that. It's amazing how well the rapport that they have with the patient already, because they've dealt with them multiple times in the community. The friendships that they have with these patients, the way they deal with them is pretty amazing, to just de-escalate and calm the patient down.
So there's actually a question that another participant I'm gonna play off about a little bit. So I'm gonna reword it a little, I apologize to fit this, but domestic violence and drug abuse tend to go hand in hand. Does CHD and law enforcement have any policy or plan in place using domestic violence calls as an opportunity to treat drug issues?
Do you want to go first? Or do you
That issue specifically, I think becomes on a case-to-case basis on the severity of the situation, what we can do to help the individual, how many times it's happened. There's a whole degree, but if there is a violent episode that's going on because of substance abuse of some sort, we are often brought into the equation. And if CHD gets notified about the majority of things that have to do with mental health or drug addiction. When we get the initial call, it's filtered out due to like who works that specific thing. We have crisis peers who do that. We have mental health peers who work that element, and then we have substance use people who go and address the substance use part of them. We don't like to put ourselves into any sort of harm, so if there is a aggressive situation that is happening, law enforcement is often so kind to escort us out there and be there to help us out with the situation. So it really is a team effort when it comes to highly escalated instances.
Yeah, so domestic violence calls remain to be one of the most difficult, challenging calls for service that we're dealing with. Couple of prongs to that. Not every disturbance or domestic violence call for service that we go to results in someone being arrested and going to jail. In a lot of those cases, this may come as a surprise to you, but a lot of times people are really not very interested in our advice or our counsel. And so in those situations, we may very well be aware that a substance is involved, and quite frankly, a disproportionate percentage of the time it is. And not by just one or the other of the parties. Oftentimes it's both parties. So the facts are, a lot of those calls we're not able to get through to them. The other prong to that is when there is a physical custody arrest that results from that domestic violence situation, then a police officer, deputy sheriff, the state trooper, whoever's dealing with that, they write a very detailed report that's required that goes along with that arrest. And then that's forwarded to our district attorney, and in that report, we include all of the investigative information, and a lot of times, if we're able, we will include that the person was, intoxicated by alcohol. Sometimes the cause of the domestic is, an argument over, drugs or whatever that may be. We include all of that in the report. That is one of the places where we, in the criminal justice system, we still have leverage to cause someone to seek treatment during the prosecution process. If the underlying cause, the foundational cause is intoxication or addiction, then a lot of times then we can use that as leverage to cause that person to get the assistance that is beneficial to them, and then, so that's helpful. But I hope that helps answer the question.
Okay, great. Thank you. What are common substances that can lead to other problems? So the opioid epidemic that we're seeing now, are people jumping into the opioid epidemic with opioids? Is it coming from somewhere? How do we get here?
Unfortunately, because it's hitting our youth so much younger, that time frame has kind of squished together. It used to be, you know, cigarettes, and then it was cannabis, and then it would have this escalation period that would happen. Most of the people that I've worked with between the marijuana and partying stage is where the addiction had already set in, and they were well on our way. Mental health is a huge thing when it comes to drug addiction. We're not really sure what comes first, the chicken or the egg on that one, but our youth suffer from mental health, and I don't know if there's a lot of people that want to recognize that. We see our youth and as child problems, and as Officer Gomez has said, that's real world situations to them, and it really does affect their mental health. So when they find a substance that is able to alleviate either that stress, anxiety, and all those issues, they become very quickly bonded to it. So the time frame has scrunched, because now that there's kids that are vaping and trying cocaine all in the same week, like literally, they are just flushed with it and jumped into the pool. So that is one of the scariest things about it, is because these substances are in our middle school, they are in our high school. It is not 21, 22, 3-year-old kids that are, you know, partying in college anymore. It's our adolescents who are being exposed to these things.
Methamphetamine has become a bigger problem as well.
Yeah. So this seems like it's a problem for people who already have an addiction. How does it impact everyone else?
The cost of it is huge on our society, you know, our loved ones. I mean, it's devastating to our economy, to social consequences. I mean, it's devastating in so many ways.
They were all looking at me when that question came out.
No, I was just looking.
I got lots of things.
Moderator.
Maybe if you looking past me. That's it. I've heard it stated, and I like this. I think it does a good job of describing what goes on. If you have someone close to you, a family member that is stuck in the throes of addiction, it's really like you're all in that addiction. And it's really difficult to escape. I mean, I talk to so many people in our community that the ripple, I mean, it's the ripple effect of this within our community, our societies, quite frankly. It can't be understated. I mean, we have a workforce problem. This is a component of that. I'm not suggesting that it's the entire thing, but I personally, my experiences in my professional walk, I've never known a single person that was made a better parent, a better employee, a better anything by using and abusing substances. So it's all of the things. I suspect whoever asked that question, you probably have your own assumptions, and yeah, you're right. It's not, there's nothing positive about it. There's nothing good. It's not going to make your life better.
How can parents best monitor social media accounts for their children to protect them from substance abuse? What should we be looking for?
So again, spend time with your kids, know what they're doing on social media. Look and see what other people are doing. Form parent groups. I found that a couple of parents start forming groups. They start talking to each other about the applications. Also, there are some very good educational sites. Wait Till 8th is a program that encourages everybody to wait till 8th grade to start social media. It's like, don't give your kids a smartphone. The other thing is there are specialty phones, Gap Wireless, Pinwheel, Light Phone. Those kind of phones look like smartphones, but they're very well monitored. You can't download applications that aren't good for you. Other parenting groups in the community can start and say, let's talk about this, what's going on with our kids. And you can share information back and forth as to what's going on with the kids in your own community. And it's pretty similar to all the other communities. There's lots of information about it. There's Screen Smart Families. There's Bark is a company that does some monitoring, but what's nice about them is they give out a lot of education. The education is there. You have to believe in your mind that you can keep up with your kids. A lot of parents are so far behind they think they can never keep up. You might not be able to keep up, but you can keep pace with them. Understand what's happening. Set your boundaries. Set what's going on in your house. One rule, hard, fast rule I tell parents, don't let any electronics in bedrooms ever. Right? I don't care if it's daytime, nighttime, anything. Don't let them in the bedrooms ever. That's an easy thing. Second time is monitor screen time. Before you give your kid a phone, set how many hours a day you're willing to let them have screen time and stick to it. And just know your kids.
If I can say as a parent of a teenager too, if you remove a cell phone from a teenager, they will find an extra one and they will hide it. So look for it. It'll be there, yes. Multiple times.
Is there a portal, a handbook, a resource center, a resource list, a website somewhere that lists treatment resources and contacts locally?
There is a massive amount of resource availability. Different things have been set up from our, there's Warm Line, there's text now numbers, suicide hotlines. There's a lot of different avenues for a lot of different resources. I know CHD has, at least the ones that we offer are on our website and can get you to the, whether that's substance abuse, mental health, and any of the other programs that we offer are all there and can be found there. If anybody has any specific questions about resources, I'll be walking around too and can talk to me about them and get you set up to where it is that you need to go directly.
And I'm going to add a plug for the Safe Communities Coalition too. The Union County Safe Communities Coalition is made up of a variety of professionals from multiple agencies in Union County, many of them on our panel tonight and in the audience. So that is always a place that you can go. We have a Facebook page and a website. If we don't have it listed on either of those places, our staff and our coalition members can help direct you as well. So I just want to plug Safe Communities once more. Okay, so I want to be thoughtful of the time out there. I want to end with one final question and then give you all the opportunity to do some mingling out there with our panelists. I've got two questions that are similar. I'm going to try to put them together here. As a community member, what do you recommend we should be doing to make our community more aware of the issues that are happening?
I think doing things like this, I think this is a good example of increasing awareness and providing that education. I think EU Alive for live streaming it so that more people can see it. The work that Union County Safe Communities Coalition is doing to bring events like this is increasing awareness and spreading the word, talking to family and friends, sharing what you learned tonight is important.
Okay. You're reaching for your mic. I was just making sure.
Anything that I would have to say, I think it just says what you just said, maybe in a different way, but I think it's just a matter of, communicate with each other. And earlier, in panel presentation, it was shared that it's like, it just needs to, the topic is here. I told you guys that we have a local problem nationwide. Look at a newspaper, watch the news. I don't recommend it, but watch the news. I don't even look for it. And as I'm scrolling through Facebook, I see trunkfuls of tens of thousands of opioid pills. It's just be aware and loop your kids into it. Talk to them about how dangerous this is, because at the end of the day, at some point, someplace, they're going to have to make some decisions that will affect them personally and everyone else for that matter. But I think it's just important. We just got to talk about it and bring it to the forefront, because it's out there and they're going to have options. So we just need to make sure that we educate folks so that they know that when that time comes, that they have an opportunity to take a pill or take a hit or whatever it is. It's like, just don't do that. Because just saying, I mean, I don't mean to be cliche, but just denying that or just saying no is 100% better option than trying to deal with recovery. So.
And I would just like to touch on that just a little bit. Chief Bell gave us some pretty scary statistics at the beginning of this, and what I know with my job and the individuals that I work with, we hear about so many more. We get contacted when people end up in the ED for some sort of substance abuse issue, so that we can go provide that outreach and start, trying to lessen the frequency of the ED visits and the strain that happens due to active addiction. We do these massive Narcan distributions, and so we really touch with the demographic of people that are in need of this, and the amount of overdoses that are not reported or are not seen in the ED is quite a bit more. And we're also getting a lot more of people are finding a sunglass case that contain these pills in a parking lot or in a grocery store, or so that's another thing about education, is that we really need to be aware that it is not an isolated incident. Addiction is not just a stereotypical thing anymore. It affects everybody, and it is everywhere. The methamphetamine has made a comeback, but as we were sitting here, I wanted to address the very vast majority of the people that I work with on initial contacts. Their drug of choice is fentanyl. They're not being deceived by it anymore. It is not something that gets past them. They are searching for it. They are looking for it, and they know where to find it. And that is the phase that we have gone to here, is that it is, people are no longer getting tricked. They are looking for it. And that's sad, because that's truly where we at as a society right now.
I think Deputy Gomez has mentioned a couple times tonight, families. I think it's our responsibility as communities to have a home where we can teach our kids the right and wrong thing and help them have a relationship with them, so that they come to us instead of going to somebody else about what they found, or when somebody comes to them with pornography or with drugs, are they going to turn to us or not? Also, if you have somebody in your own home that is abusing or that is addicted to something, it's hopefully you can have the relationship with them, and it may take time to help them get through it. I tell people in the emergency department all the time, even if it's just smoking tobacco, if you want to stop, and that significant other next to you that's smoking needs to stop at the same time, you're never going to be able to do it alone. And it's the same with any other drug addiction. If you want to stop, you need to be supported by the people around you.
Thank you all. Can we have one more round of applause for our panelists? All right, our speakers will hang out in the lobby area where you checked in. Again, there's your little reminder. If you did not sign in, please make sure that you sign in. On that table, too, that you signed in for, you will see some resources. There are some handouts that are available for you to take. Take what you need, leave what you don't. So please take a look at what's on the table, and then stop by the little cafe area across for some cookies and maybe some other little treats out there. And thank you again for coming. We really appreciate it.